All right, here's a video that is not on YouTube, and you won't ever find it, even on forums. Okay? And why am I doing this? You know what? I know shit, all right? And I'll just leave it at that. Like I said before, I've worked in many places, so what sparked this? So I'm working on a Durango. I'm actually working on a fuel system, and it dawned on me that a lot of where do I even start with this? Okay, all right. You ever notice why Dodge doesn't have a fuel filter on the chassis on their Magnum engines? Well, there's quite a few reasons, but it all starts inside the pickup. Why doesn't Dodge have a fuel filter in their fuel system? Like Chevy, they got it bolted to the frame. Ford, they got it bolted to the frame. Well, the answer to that is actually they have two filters. They have two filters starting with the fuel pump module. Actually, it starts with the screen, okay? But we're not going to count the screen because it's not an actual paper element. So the screen doesn't count. So it goes to the screen. It goes in the reservoir, okay? Because there's a check valve in the bottom. It goes in a reservoir. So the fuel is slowly let in to the reservoir chamber. And that's why you have a, let me see, oh yeah, you guys can see this. So let's do this off to the side, all right? Here's your fuel pump, okay? This is a crude but effective drawing that will serve our purpose, okay? And let's just put an outlet. All right, what happens is this has a gasket, like a rubber type gasket. There's a check valve right here, okay? This is a one-way valve. The fuel actually, here's the basket, here's the fuel level, okay? Check valve, sealing gasket, it goes in through the check valve, in here, to this tube, okay? And it goes out here to where it drips in the reservoir, or it strains into the reservoir until it's the level with the fuel. And you might say to yourself, well, this is always more full than the tank. Well, we'll get to that. So when you turn the key on, fuel pump spins, and what happens is right here is your inlet, and you'll have a set of gears, okay? It actually, it's very representative of the oil pump, all right? You have your, let's just dumb this down a little bit. I'm not going to go through the, you know, so you have a, here's your pump, okay? There's a metal, there's a rotor style pump in here, okay? It's not a vane, okay? So what happens is your fuel goes in here, it gets pressurized. Well, it doesn't actually pressurize here. Your fuel goes in here, travels up and out here, okay? So what makes the pressure? Well, pressure is nothing but volume with resistance, okay? Now, have you guys ever heard of a pulsor valve? Of course not. It's not something that you regularly replace on a vehicle. But if it goes bad, it will have a drivability issue that is very, very hard to find. And actually, what will happen over time is you'll be going through a lot of fuel pumps, okay, if it goes bad. So what is a pulsor valve? Well, on Chevy, the older styles, it kind of looks like this. All right, and you got this goes on top of your fuel pump. Okay, you got the fuel coming out of the fuel pump into this pulsor valve and out to your sender unit. Okay, this pulsor valve, it has a diaphragm in it. Okay, and it's spring loaded. And what it does is it actually absorbs the vibrations of not only the injectors firing, but also it dampens the stop and go of the electric motor when it's running. Remember, it's an electric field. All right, we're getting pretty. All right, let's dig deep. When you spin an electric motor, it kind of does this, right? So the stronger that field is, the more torque it's going to have, the more rotational force it'll have. The problem with that is when it runs, it's not running like, it's actually running like, you got your stop and your go. Okay, here's your stop, here's your go. So if you were to slow things down, if you were to get really, really slow, you'll actually see that the electric motor isn't spinning smoothly. It's slowing down and speeding up because there's a winding, there's an electronic field. Now, moving forward, your injectors, they have an on cycle, they have an off. All right? When it comes on, fuel pressure, it goes down, okay? You relieve some of that fuel pressure, and then it closes. And what happens? What happens when you open a valve, when something's flowing, and you close it? Well, it deadheads. It has that hammer effect, all right? That hammer effect and the stop and go of that electric motor is what this gets rid of. Now, when you work with oscilloscopes, okay, and you work with high-speed cameras and smoke machines, and you get really, really in depth with this stuff, okay, you start everything that you thought you knew, it's actually way more complicated. It's way more involved. For instance, remember when I said that the electric motor has a winding to it, a resistance to through the mechanical movement if you were to turn that armature in there? So on the you all have seen it, okay? You've seen it on alternators, you saw it on starters. You've all seen this, all right? You got your brushes, your contacts, all right? Here's your brushes. Here's your armature. What's on the armature? You got vanes. And every vane goes to a different winding, all right? So when it's turning, you have a gap here, okay? How do you know how many of these windings you have in a fuel pump without taking it apart? And you can see, and you can test a fuel pump if it's a good quality fuel pump or if it's a bad quality fuel pump, and you can actually determine on how long it'll last and its life in the vehicle, how it will taper, okay, how it'll get worse, all right? So how do you determine how many of these windings is in this electronic motor without taking it apart? How do you, ready? All right. Electric motor. Your electric wires, okay? Is positive, is negative, inconsequential. Every time this rotates, okay, and the brushes hit a different part of the armature, what happens is it creates a peak wave, all right? I actually need a bigger board. So as it's turning, you'll see another peak wave, okay? Then you'll see another one, and then you'll see another one, and then you'll see another one. and it'll keep going on and on. And what will happen is one of these peak waves will, let's do this one because it's the last one, okay? Let's just make this like a shark fin, all right? Okay. You'll see that these are kind of round. Whoa, okay, here, let's, yeah. So you'll see that these are kind of round here, right? Let's not get confused there. But you'll see these two that look different, or that actually look the same, identical, but different from all the others. For instance, let's just say that this is round. The one after this is going to be round. Okay? And so on and so forth. This one, let's just, for exaggerating here, let's just say this one looks like a U. This one next to it is going to look like a U. All right? So, every winding has a very slight difference in the electric pull, in the cutoff. So if you want to count this, you've got to hook it to a oscilloscope and count the waves. You got to find the one that is so different from the others that you can say, that's different. I can now take that and I can count, like, you know, there's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, all right, there's 8. So that means that there, right here, there is actually 8 set of windings. All right. Now that's a good pump. All right. Because the more windings you have, the more bars you have here, the smoother the pump is going to run. However, the more expensive the pump is going to be. All right. Now, since that's explained, hold on.